Good Shabbos, everyone. My name is Aaron Saywitz. I'm on your CNT board. Some announcements for you. This Sunday, join our religious school students for a very wicked Purim Spiel and Carnival. The Spiel starts at 10 a.m. with games, food, activities, and fun to follow. Wristbands can be purchased at the door or ahead of time on the website. My daughter said I have to say this. Even Queen Esther liked to shop the sales. Visit the CNT gift shop during the Purim Carnival on Sunday for big discounts, 30 to 50% off their Judaica, Kippot, Talilot, Mezuzot, and more. It'll be open from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., so be sure to stop by. On Monday, our senior schmoozers meet at noon in the social hall for a Purim bash. Join the schmoozers for an afternoon of food, fun, and a seniors Purim spiel, featuring special visitors from the Cantor ECEC. There will be prizes. Award to the best dressed Esther, Haman, Mordecai, and King A. This event is open to the public for 65 plus. CNT members are free, not yet members are $18. Please RSVP. The Southern Nevada Jewish community invites you to gather together for Everyone Has a Name indigent burial ceremony at Woodlawn Cemetery on Tuesday, March 11th, starting at 4 p.m. This ceremony will be to unveil new headstones for individuals buried there. Help us to ensure these people and their names are not forgotten and to honor their memory. CNT Next Gen invites all young adults, 21 to 40-ish, to join us for March events. On Wednesday, March 12th, visit Slater's 50/50 for trivia night starting at 6:45. On Saturday, March 15th, hit the green at Swingers Mandalay Bay at 7 p.m. for Havdalah and mini golf. Be sure to follow them on Instagram. On Sunday, March 30th, are you all taking notes? At 12:30 p.m., Sisterhood will be getting ready for Passover by creating their very own Miriam's cups. Led by Joni Axelrod, attendees will design and paint their own Miriam cup to use at the Women's Seder or in your home. Reserve your spot for $25 per person by March 10th. We would like to thank Dr. Greg Brown for sponsoring the Oneg this evening in honor of tonight's special guest, journalist Yardina Schwartz. Pam Henderson will be teaching a new Zoom class, Tanakh Part 3, Ketuvim, exploring Ruth, Psalms, Proverbs, Song of Songs, and more. The class will take place on Wednesdays, starting March 26th through May 28th from 5:30 to 7:30. The class is $54 for members and $75 for not yet members. Okay, and now I'd like to invite Rabbi Cookie Olshine up to make an additional announcement. Shabbat Shalom.
This is set for Rabbi A, not Rabbi O. Hello, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. So I'm here to talk with you for less than 2 minutes about something that could make a huge difference in Judaism, in Israel, and throughout the world. It is the World Zionist Congress elections. When you walked in tonight, I know, thank you. Yeah.
They want you to stand on your tippy toes.
I'm in heels standing on my tippy toes here. As you walked in this evening, I hope you were handed a piece of paper. Raise your hand, or raise your paper if you have one. Very nice, thank you. Don't throw it away. It's reminding you of some really important information. The World Zionist Congress elections begin on Monday. And why should you vote? First of all, you're going to vote reform, number 3 on the ballot. Number 3, remember, number 3. You're going to go online. You can use this really cool little QR code, or you can go to voteforreform.org, which will take you there. We're going to be going into a lot more detail on Friday, March 21st regarding all the whys, but I'm going to give you one why. You see, this organization, the World Zionist Organization with the World Zionist Congress elections, determines how $1 billion plus are spent on behalf of the Jewish people and in Israel. That's B, $1 billion. And the World Zionist Congress is made up of Jews in Israel, Jews in America, and the third category are Jews in the rest of the diaspora. Depending upon how many votes vote reform gets, is how many seats we get in the World Zionist Congress. Why is that important to you, your children, to all of us? Well, Reform Jewish values matter, and right now there is actually an active campaign going on, sadly, against Reform Jewish values. by people who are more traditionally Jewish than we are. An active campaign against us, which means we have to turn out the vote. They don't like it when we show up. And so I'm going to, on March 21st, that Friday night, I'm going to go into all the details about what happens when we don't show up. What happens in Israel when we don't vote? Because what it will mean is there will be less money for Reform congregations. There will be less money allocated by the government for Reform Jewish values. Conversions in America that we do may not be acknowledged in Israel. Can you imagine for the people who choose to join the Jewish people to not be acknowledged? So please, Monday night, 5 p.m., you'll see that if you would like to join the kickoff party, right here on your piece of paper, it tells you where to go. Join the kickoff party. There'll be music and fun, and everybody will get to vote at one time if you join the online party. But 2 weeks later, and you'll notice the election's open until May 4th, 2 weeks later, we will be studying all the different reasons why it matters. That's my 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right,
Come
thank
ask me
you,
questions
Rabbi
afterwards.
Olshein.
Shabbat shalom.
We are blessed with Rabbi Olshein as our resident rabbinic scholar this year, and she has taken under her portfolio social justice, so thank you very much. I'm looking straight ahead, and I just want to follow the yellow brick road. What is that about, Cantor? What's going on here? Right down the center.
I'm
and this
testing-
one Friday night, and you changed the whole place. What is this?
Yeah, so you don't think we were gone for a few days, and I thought the place needed more pink.
Yeah,
So.
a little more pink. All right.
But yeah, so Yellow Brick Road. It is our Wicked Purim spiel.
I thought it was going to be Elton John.
Nope.
Did any of you get that joke?
I mean, I got it,
Come
but,
on, come on. Thank you.
All right, we're testing the microphones for it. So far, I can't stand this one. Okay, so Wicked Purim spiel, 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. Our kids have been rehearsing since January. There are 17 of them in the spiel, including my son. And it's adorable. This whole place will be transformed. You won't even know what you walked into. And we want to see the house full for the kids to show up and show your support for them and how hard they've worked to put on this Purim spiel. Okay, I'm taking this thing off my head. Yeah.
Phil. All right. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. right here, followed by the Purim Carnival. All right. So follow the Yellow Brick Road right back here on Sunday. So look out at the congregation. I want to remind you of our relatively new tradition to greet each other, not the person next to you or even behind you, but I ask that you all stand up, make your way throughout the whole sanctuary, find people you don't know, and wish them good Shabbos. Introduce yourselves. Here we go.
טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Our 9th and 10th graders are making their way up for candle blessings and Kiddush and Motzi. They're going to be leading us tonight in our Shabbat prayers. We're on page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'echad likner shel Shabbat.
And God bless the Sabbath day and made it holy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Put your follow here. Leave your follow.
We turn to page 138 for Lechadodi. We're going to do verses 1, 2, and 9.
Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hamiuchad hayachad shemo echad u'shem el tiferet la 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 lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha hishmiyon nira Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela.
We rise to greet the Shabbat Queen. Bo'i v'shalom ateret bala.
Gam besimcha u'betzola. Toch emunei am segula. Bo'i chala, bo'i chala. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela.
We turn to page 146 and remain standing for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. We turn to page 148. We read together in the middle of the page.
This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai Hamari Barabim. We read at the top of page 151.
As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Let me into the misery.
Mystery, not misery. Don't lead me into misery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod
forever and ever. Please be seated.
We continue with Ve'ahavta, page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. That there is a better place, a promised land. That the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל חנו שירה בשמחה רבה ברוך כולם.
Madonna, Darba Kodesh, Nora Tehilo, Dose Fele, Nora Tehilo, Dose Fele. Lechutecha Ra'u Vanecha, Ushayam Livnei Moshe Miriam, Ze'eli Amru V'Amru, Ze'eli Amru V'Amru.
Unsure of yourselves at like your bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, but like right now you're like you've never been up here before. It's very cute. Okay. All right, we're gonna celebrate the joy of Shabbat. So are you ready for that? Okay, Vishamro. All right, let's switch rooms with the mics.
I think Bayla should lead this one.
Alex, can you bring my mic like way down, please?
You got this, honey.
All right, so there's a little choreography that goes along with this. The originator of the choreography on the bima actually is standing right there. Okay, raise your hand. Okay, so who remembers when Magnolia was like seven, maybe? Seven? And she used to this would be on the bima? All right, we all grow up. All right, come on, guys. All right. Let's show our joy in celebrating Shabbat. So we're going to do what they do. Here we go.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Last time we want to hear you.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We invite you to join us in standing. We're on page 164 through 170 in our, or 180 in our Amidah prayers.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufia tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Lekonei Hakol, V'zocher Hostei Avot v'Imaot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihen, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Choser U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ezra Sarah, Atah Gibor Levam Adonai, Mechaye Hakol, Atah Rav Lehoshia, Shiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechayel Hayim Bechesed, Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Ramim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Olim, Umatir Asarim, Umechayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Giverot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayem, Umasmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. HaKadosh B'Shem HaKadosh קדושים בכל יום והודו חסלה ברוך אתה אדוני
We continue in our own private prayers, pages 170 through 180, 181 in your Siddur. You can use the words on the page, on the right or the left side of the page, or the words within your heart. When you have completed your private prayers, please be seated.
So we turn our attention now to our Mishaberach list. It's a time when we think of those in our circle of family and friends who are in need of our prayers. It reminds them that even when they are ill and they feel often alone, that there are people who care about them and pray for them and are by their side. And so we begin by saying these names which were submitted to our office: Jared Goldberg, Edwina Staretsky, Malcolm Doctors, Stephen Grau, the Rochford Gould family, Roberta Bobby Kane, Logan Knapp and family, Shoshana Ham, Kim Botwin, Alana Bat Abram Vaalia, Amber Holdorf, John Hutchins, our friends, family, in Medinat Yisrael. If you'd like to say the name of people special to you, please simply stand and say their names. We rise, join arm in arm as we pray together, Mishaberach.
Source of strength, who blessed
We remain standing for Aleinu on page 586. This was a special request Aleinu.
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלוש ענקי הארצות, מלאות למנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו כחול המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
If you're watching us on the live stream, we invite you now to submit the names you are thinking of people who are no longer with us for Kaddish prayers and yortzites. Page 598.
So we say Kaddish for Laverne Hirsch, Sherry Muskin, Harvey Katz, Jerry Cohen, Bill Weiling, my mentor, Rabbi Bradley Bliefeld, Oded Lifshitz, and Shiri, Ariel, and Kafir Bibas, Maxine Schoenwald. And we recall the Yortzites of Bob Leonard, Muriel Toffel, Sally Ann Kirshner, Catherine Zolotto, Lee Pearson, Rocky Burial, Stephen Bush, Madeleine Timpa, Solomon Baggin, Ruth Pessin, Phyllis Crone, Constant Unger, Harriet Bernick, Anita Russell, Dixie Greb, Mark Stolar, Shirley Lebovitz, Hollis Klein, Jack Rosenberg, Ruth Schall, Emily Wander, Paul Cranston, Israel Prieto III, Harry Borscher, Julia Kurtman, Paul Ross, Scotty Doxwell, Melissa Evan, Francis Carter Ramsberg, Maria Lugo, Sheldon Gordon, Joseph Bernard, DeAndrea Jr., Evelyn Kashuk, Francis McConey, David Ewan, Annette Schultz, Maureen Moss, Sarah Barr, Charnas, Louis Katz, Harry Pariser. If you'd like to say the name of someone special to you, but was not mentioned, please say their names.
Paul Cranston, race singer Kim Watson. Robert Green. Page 598.
Yit Gadol, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah,
Be'amad Yivrach Yirteh V'yamlich Mahuteh, B'hayahom Deho Beit Yisrael, B'agalav Zman Kariv V'Ramein, Yishmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Umei Omaya, Yitzbarach V'yishtabach V'yitzpar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, Yitzadar V'yitzaleh V'yitzalal Shmei D'Kusha B'richu, Leila Mikol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbachata V'nechemata, Damiram Bilma V'imru Amen.
Yishma Rabba Min Shammai V'chayim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. That striped chair. Over by the striped chair right over there. Nice and quiet. It's a Wizard of Oz theme. Doesn't anyone have an oil can? All right, Dr. Brown. Great, come on up. Del, don't let him do that. Del, I got it. Del, you got it. I got it. You promised me not to move this stuff. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me. Is that the background? Just leave it right where it is.
We're going to put the sign on it. You don't want to want it?
Let's just go. Right, is that all right? That's fine. All right, that's fine. You want to use that mic right there? All right, we can move to our compelling conversation, and I'd like to invite our congregant and professor at UNLV, Dr. Greg Brown, who is responsible for bringing our guest, Dennis Schwartz, to our congregation. So take it away.
Okay. So I guess, as many of you know, and as we've talked about at UNLV, a lot of the folks who are here at Ner Tamid were really instrumental in building a faculty staff group and in starting an initiative that we've been working on all year with support of the now former president and the university administration to sort of increase the visibility and the influence of Jewish identity and Jewish inclusion at UNLV. Within that context, then, we were looking to do educational programming, and one of the reasons that I was really interested in bringing Yardena here was because, as a historian, I guess my greatest concern is not just that people don't know history, it's they really don't understand the basic concepts, they don't understand context, and they want simple answers. There are no simple answers in history. And I think that her book, when I read it last fall, really did that really, really well. It told a story in a compelling way. It tells us a lot about specific individuals, and it tells us a lot about the lives of the people who were affected, of Jews, of Arabs, in the 1920s, in the 1930s, in the 1940s, in the 1960s, 70s, and up to the present. And so in that sense, what was really important, I felt, particularly at UNLV, but I think in general, was that we've talked a lot about what is or is not anti-Semitism, what is or is not Zionism. We've talked very little about the lives of those people, and her book really brought that across. So given the opportunity, I was able to get some support from the Academic Engagement Network, from Hillel, from the university, to have her come visit, and I thought it would be really wonderful, in addition to having her give the really amazing talk that she gave at UNLV on Wednesday, to come and join with us at Ner Tamid, and the rabbi thought this was a good idea too. So I'm really, really proud to be able to have contributed to this.
All right.
So I guess I should also introduce Yardena, right? That was the Okay.
Oh,
So
I was waiting for that part. Greg
is an internationally renowned journalist, and she had worked in Israel for 10 years, reporting on a variety of things, including some of the conflict, but also a large number of other really interesting stories that she wrote, long-form magazine stories, which I really like to read. So she worked for a variety of important English language publications, New York Times, Foreign Policy, Time, won several awards, was nominated for an Emmy for TV work, and then got involved in this book that I think she's going to tell us about. So at this point, she is both an author and a journalist. She is the executive editor of ARC Media, which is a new podcast network that has the really important Call Me Back podcast, which people may listen to. And other than that, is actually really a terrific person, lives now in upstate New York.
All right, thank you very much. Let's have a warm welcome for Yordana Schwartz, everyone. And here is her book, which I think is going to be available after services, if you want to take a closer look. So we switched modalities from the sacredness of Shabbat to a conversation with our special guest. And this allows us to have a little bit longer format than perhaps we might if it was kind of wedged in the middle of services. And this topic really deserves not just the 20 minutes or so that we offer tonight, but a lot more depth. So here we have the ghosts of a holy war, the 1929 massacre in Palestine that initiated the Arab-Israeli conflict. Let me see by a show of hands, how many of you here knew about the massacre in 1929? Raise your hand. Okay, how many of you had no idea? Like you have no idea what this is about? So for the people that do know a little something, raise your hands one more time. How many of you think that there might be, keep them raised, might be a connection between what happened then and what's going on now? How many of you just kind of made a connection? Okay, a few of you. All right. Well, we got our work cut out for us. They got to read your book. We have a lot of people here who know very little about the conflict, why it happened, and how it can be seen to be tied to what's going on now in what we now call this post-October 7th world. So before we get into what happened, let's talk a little bit about what inspired you as a journalist to kind of dig into this particular topic to begin with. I think it had to do with a set of letters that were unveiled, right? And that led you on a journey. But listen, as a journalist, a lot of people probably go to you and say, hey, I have an idea, or my father's really interesting, or my great uncle has this story and you have to. So what was it about this story that you became so passionate?
So first of all, I should say that you shouldn't be embarrassed if you've never heard about the 1929 massacre in what was then British Mandate Palestine, because before I started working on this book, I knew almost nothing about it. I knew there had been a massacre in Hebron, but I didn't know why it had occurred, what really had happened to the people who were killed. And I didn't realize there was such a connection to everything that's happening today, and that it really explains so much of the conflict. And I didn't set out to write a book about this massacre. It really just fell into my lap. This family in Memphis, of all places, discovered a box of letters in their attic when they were moving to a new home, and that box was filled with hundreds of pages of letters written in the 1920s by their late uncle, David Schoenberg, who they didn't know much about. They knew he had moved to Palestine in 1928 to study Torah in what was then the most prestigious yeshiva in the Holy Land, and it was in Hebron. And he was killed in this massacre in 1929, so they didn't know much about him, but these letters really just opened this whole world into who he was. There was also a diary he had written in the years before he moved to Hebron, which also opened up this family's awareness into the young man he was and what he could have been if he hadn't been killed.
Didn't he write like letters every day, or was it every week?
Every week. So
every
he wrote
week.
Really long letters, like very descriptive, vivid, painted this really detailed portrait of what life was like in Hebron and in Palestine before this massacre really upended life for everyone there. And he wrote probably 10 pages of letters each week. And so it was...
But you know, like we write these short emails today, right? No one writes 10 pages of emails. So why such an in-depth? Did you ever get an insight into why he went into such depth? Was it his way of having a phone conversation, so to speak, with someone on the other end? Are you listening?
It was his only way of communicating with his family. I mean, he was very close with his family. He had grown up in this kind of very traditional Jewish family, not very religious. He actually became more religious as a result of his relationship with a rabbi at his synagogue who, this actually happened with a lot of his students. He inspired them to become much more interested in their Jewish heritage and in their religion. And he had just become David had become so interested in, ancient Jewish texts and studying the Torah that he dropped out of Wharton to move to Palestine and go to this
And he
yeshiva.
and he writes these letters, and the letters are found, so it creates this rich, deep portrait of the life that he lived.
Right.
But then that life ended, right? What happened?
Right. So what happened in 1929 was that as a result of a year-long campaign of disinformation perpetuated by the leader of Palestinian Muslims under British rule at the time, though that disinformation was centered around Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which sits atop the ruins of the ancient Jewish temples, the Temple Mount. This man, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Hajj Amina Husseini, started this rumor around the same time that David moved to Palestine in 1928, and he claimed that Jews who were praying at the Western Wall and demanding British protection to pray in peace there, and in the face of increasing Muslim attacks, he claimed that they were trying to conquer Al-Aqsa Mosque to rebuild their ancient temple. And the Mufti carried out this campaign for a whole year, and in mid-August of 1929, about 10 days before these riots took over all of Palestine, he kind of got what he needed to convince the people of Palestine that his lies were true, because around Tisha B'Av, the day after Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, there was a march by young Jews to the wall, protesting against the British failure to protect Jewish worshippers, protesting against their failure to counter the Mufti's disinformation campaign. And in their march to the wall, they chanted, the wall is ours. They were singing Hatikva, which would become Israel's national anthem. They were waving flags with the Star of David, which would become Israel's flag. And the Mufti kind of pointed to that as evidence that everything he'd been saying was true, that the Jews are going to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque. They want to take it all over. And what also happened was more disinformation was added on top of the disinformation about Al-Aqsa. Arab leaders and the Arabic press claimed that those protesters had also attacked Muslim men, raped Muslim women, cursed the Prophet Muhammad. None of that had happened, but the truth had become irrelevant as a result of this propaganda campaign. And so it was just like the match that lit the fire that just turned into these massive riots.
I think you put it in the book, but I forget. What was the ratio of Jews and Arabs at that time? Do you remember offhand?
So at that time, Jews represented 20% of the population of Palestine, and the total population was less than 1 million people.
Right.
Today, it's 10 million.
A couple 100,000 people versus 800,000 Arabs, right? So one of the things that went through my mind was there were several hundred years in Spain we call the Golden Age, and Jews and Muslims got along fine. Great. So what happened here? Was it really the Grand Mufti? Was it, or was he channeling something that was going on, because all of a sudden Jews start immigrating? There's pogrom after pogrom in Eastern Europe, and they start making their way, and he felt it was a threat to the Holy Land. Was that essentially it, as opposed to what maybe happened in Spain where they all got along?
Well, he believed that Palestine was and should always be Muslim land, that this is holy Muslim land, and this was against the backdrop of the Balfour Declaration in 1917. So there had already been this threat in his mind to this Holy Muslim land becoming potentially a Jewish home for, a home for the Jewish people. At that time, there wasn't talk of a state yet. It was still just the idea of this Jewish home where Jews fleeing persecution and pogroms in Eastern Europe could come and be safe. But he felt, and other Arab leaders and Muslim leaders felt, that this increasing Jewish immigration threatened the status of Muslims in Palestine, because before the British conquered Palestine from the Ottoman Empire, Palestine had been ruled by Muslim governments, by Muslim empires for 1,000 years. And during that 1,000 years, Muslims had been first-class citizens and non-Muslims had been second-class citizens, particularly Jews. And this idea that this would become this Jewish home threatened that dynamic. Suddenly, Jews and Muslims would be equal citizens. And that didn't sit well for the Mufti. It didn't sit well for a lot of Muslims in Palestine. And what was interesting during my research was to see how similar the language of the Mufti and other Arab leaders was to so much of the anti-immigrant rhetoric we hear today. Railing against immigrants coming to replace the native population, to steal their jobs, to rape their women. Like, he used that same language against Jewish immigrants who were fleeing pogroms.
Well, you want to make a tie to what happened then, to what happened on October 7th. And we could talk for hours on it, so our time is a little short. In the book, you note certain elements, right, that are similar. Maybe Hamas is compared to the Grand Mufti. Maybe we have Muslim power versus Israeli Jewish power. Maybe you have religious conflict, Muslim, Jewish. So those are similarities, but how do you connect the dots, though? Does that make sense, my question? Just because they're similar doesn't mean they're the same. So how do you go from this is the beginning of this and, hey, it's never stopped?
Yeah, so, there are so many haunting parallels between the massacre of 1929 and the massacre of October 7th. The testimonies of the victims are one example. In 1929, it was essentially a preview on a much smaller scale of the atrocities that were committed on October 7th. I won't go into detail, but entire families were butchered. Children watched as their parents were slaughtered by their neighbors. Women and teenage girls were raped. It was just really horrific. And that's not where the similarities end. It's also the disinformation and the weaponization of Islam and Al-Aqsa. So in 1929, just like on October 7th, the men who were killing unarmed Jewish men, women, and children weren't shouting, that they wanted to free their land. They were shouting, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. They were shouting that they were defending Al-Aqsa and defending Islam. October 7th was named the Al-Aqsa flood for a reason, because these lies still are so galvanizing for the Palestinian people. And that lie about this supposed Jewish plot to destroy Al-Aqsa has survived 100 years, despite the fact that Israel is now fully in control of the land upon which Al-Aqsa stands. And if Israel wanted to destroy Al-Aqsa to rebuild the temple, Israel would have done that by now. The parallels also go beyond to what followed the massacre. So in 1929, the atrocities were simultaneously denied by Arab leaders and blamed on their Jewish victims. So Arab leaders claimed, and Arabs in Hebron claimed, that yeshiva students had killed Jews in order to raise funds from the diaspora, while also denying that this massacre had occurred, or that they had been the ones to carry out those atrocities. October 7th, I probably don't need to remind anyone in this room that, as soon as October 7th, the day of October 7th, we saw denials of the massacre, blaming those murders on Israel, claiming that, Israeli helicopters had slaughtered the young men and women at the Nova Festival. Or, a more macro level of victim blaming was the world saying, okay, well, it was justified. There was context to this massacre. It didn't happen in a vacuum. And that kind of macro level victim blaming happened in 1929 as well, in the form of the Shaw Commission, the British commission that investigated the causes of the riots, and then a white paper that followed that essentially said, oh, okay, yeah, Muslim fears of Jewish immigration and land purchases are legitimate. We're going to limit Jewish immigration now as a direct result of this massacre. So essentially rewarding terrorism the same way we see today, terrorism being rewarded. How right after October 7th, there were calls to create a Palestinian state. And there have been efforts to work with Hamas and essentially give Hamas what it wanted, which was Palestinian prisoners convicted of murder. And
There was another similarity to denial, right? Because the Irgun came and said, hey, something bad's going to happen. We're offering to help protect you. And they said, no, we're going to be okay. And there were inklings in Israel that something bad was going to happen. And they said, no, Hamas would never do this. So I think denial is always at the heart of a sneak attack, if you will, that gets the other population off guard because they just don't believe it's going to happen. But it was interesting that you pointed out in 1929 there were Arabs who did stand up for the Jews. I didn't see that in October 7th.
yeah, no, there were many Muslim citizens of
Right,
Israel who
that tried
saved, there weren't Gazans, sadly, who saved hostages, but on October 7th, hundreds, if not thousands, of Jewish Israelis were saved by Arab Israelis, whether they were security guards at the Nova Festival or Bedouins who paid with their lives. Some of them were killed on October 7th or kidnapped to Gaza.
So, well, we're almost out of time, so quickly, what do you think now? Hope? Hope for something good to happen out of all this post-October 7th? Because really after the massacre, things, as you said, got very repetitive, war after war after war. Do you have any suggestions for the Almighty above? What we can do differently to stop this repetition of violence?
Well, several positive outcomes of 1929 were the strengthening of Zionism and the unification of the Jewish community of Palestine around the need for a Jewish state and for a Jewish army to protect the Jews of Palestine. Before 1929, Zionism was not a mainstream Jewish value. Many traditional Jews, including David Schoenberg himself, regarded Zionism as this secular contamination of Judaism, while many American Jews saw Zionism as a threat to our fragile place in American society. So we've seen since October 7th, a similar kind of strengthening of many Jews, connection to our Judaism, connection to our community, and a reaffirmation of the importance of the Jewish community and of being together. It's hard to see the bright sides in all of this over the past 16 months, now I think 17 months, but somehow I remain hopeful, I think, because without hope, what is there? This acknowledgement that we're just going to be stuck in this forever war. I think we have to be hopeful because without hope, we won't strive for a better future. And we clearly need a better future. We also need the other side to also want a better future. And I hope that we see, voices for peace emerging from the other side and recognition that, violence and this rejection of peace over the last century has gotten Palestinians nowhere closer to their own state. So hopefully we'll see something good come of that as well.
Well, we could go on for a long time. Looking at Leslie, she's going, we got 2 minutes left. So we get to plug the book, Ghosts of the Holy War. And I understand afterwards you're gonna sign the book. Maybe some of you want to read it. It is beautifully written. Professional journalist, but she's also a poet at heart. The words make the time period come alive. What happened to the main character come alive. It's really a brilliant book. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much.
The last I'm looking at is the title. Is there more than one meaning when you use the word ghosts? Ghosts of a Holy War. Did you choose that word ghost for a reason? I'm sure you did.
Well, yeah, because it's not just these people, such as the Grand Mufti, whose legacy continues to affect millions of people today, but also, David's words kind of really linger on. And I mean, you'll see if you read the book, like he's also, I think, a poet. He was a beautiful writer, and I think it's sad to wonder like what could have come of him and so many others who were killed that day.
Well, thank you very much for making this book come alive and for writing the book. Let's all join together in thanking our guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So the students are going to lead us towards hope, which is a prayer, Ose Shalom. Then, Leslie, where are we going to go next? Are we going to go into the foyer, into the lobby? All right. And so, again, Greg, thank you so much. And thank you to our students.
Thank you so much.
Barbara, and a beautiful oneg to follow.
I think Julian wants the microphone.
Oh my God, these kids are fighting to sing. No?
Where's Bela?
All right, and we pray together for peace.
Say shalom bimrama, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu 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 ve'akol Yisrael. V'meru amen.
Hey, let's get our own
Shabbat shalom.
They turned my mic off.
And thank you to our 9th and 10th grade for leading us with so much joy. I want to thank Barbara Siegel on the piano and Alex Hill on sound, our special guest, Dr. Greg Brown, and of course our rabbi, our shamashim, all the people that made tonight possible. Shabbat shalom.